Welcome to Real Estate Agent Superstars. I'm your host, RJ Baxter with Intercap Lending, and I have on with me today a representative of a powerhouse team in Colorado Springs, Bryan Rodriguez of the Lana Rodriguez team. So welcome to the show, Bryan. Appreciate you being a guest.
No, thank you for the invite. Honored.
So tell us a little bit more about yourself. How did you guys get involved in the business?
I love that question. It's like always the first question of every, engagement. And it's pretty, I want to say it's pretty funny. But I was born in Puerto Rico, a little island in the Caribbean. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Atlanta and I played football in Georgia. So as you know, University of Georgia just won back-to-back championships. Oh, yeah. So football is kind of a big deal. And then I got the opportunity to play football in college. And so I went to the United States Military Academy at West Point. So it's America's Military Academy in New York. And that was a phenomenal experience. And so you have to pay your dues, right? And so you have to serve. And I served for over 11 years. And I've been to Iraq, Afghanistan, Europe, 23 countries. All sponsored by the government. And that was a great experience. But one of the cool things in that experience is I got to meet my wife. And then that started really our real estate journey.
Okay. How did you meet her?
Yeah. So it's like kind of the part of the fun story. So it was Black Friday and I was a young, crazy guy, just came back from Iraq, and I was always active. And Black Friday came because we had Thanksgiving the day before, the night before, the day before, mm-hmm. and I fell asleep because you eat turkey, right? And you fall asleep. Anyways, we woke up and we missed all the celebrations of that night, but Black Friday was happening, so we're like, hey, let's continue our festivities. And at the time, I was living in Austin, Texas, because I was stationed at Fort Hood, Texas. And I think I was getting the iPhone 2. Like, I kid you not. That's how I'm dating myself.
Was that a thing?
And,
at one point?
Yeah. Was that a thing? And during the mall excursion, one of my friends was like, there's this beautiful Russian girl that works at Michael Kors. So Michael Kors at the time, women's brand, very popular, was just being introduced. It went public, and she was the store manager. Lana was the store manager. So she was opening up the store on Black Friday. So that was all hectic and stuff. Okay. And so, I got in there and I saw her, and pretty much it was 2 months of trial and error, and I finally got her attention, and and the rest is history.
A true salesman, two months of saying no, and she finally said yes.
hey, there's always options.
Yeah. So it was her vision to go into real estate, or was she always geared that way, or both of you, or?
No, I love that. That's another great question. So I always say, in negotiations, there's 7 elements. And one of the elements are threats, you could say, and or ultimatums. And so we were a young couple. We moved to Colorado in the summer of 2014. And at the time, we've owned 3 properties. And so we thought we were like little investors. But I was active duty at the time. And Lana left her retail career to follow me. And we were stationed here in Colorado Springs at Fort Carson. And I would say, like a lot of women, they track their timing of when they think it's optimal to have a child. And she had an inquiry with me, and she's like, hey, I want a kid. And I was like a little scared. Obviously, I was younger. And I was nervous because I was like, well, we're one income. And I don't know if I could, have that responsibility now and so forth. But I knew that she had amazing potential because of her retail management career. Michael Kors wasn't her only management career. She's opened up BCBG Maximera, Kenneth Cole, Ed Hardy, Puma, like the list goes on. So she understands brand and customer service. So I was like, if you want a kid, you need to get your real estate license. And so it was so funny because I made an ultimatum and she was very mad. However, she wanted to prove me wrong. And I always say I like created Frankenstein, like, oh, I created a monster because
Little did you guess.
literally, yeah, little did we know that she would come out the gate over 30 transactions her first year and then 119 postpartum. So that's how we got into real estate sales.
Okay. How did she have so much success right out of the gate?
Yeah, I mean, that's always like the $1 million question. And, I think over the past, since 2015, we summed it up to client experience. And it's gotten more sophisticated over the years. And like we talked before about what it's going to look like in 2023, but it started with real humble beginnings. And I mean, I'll just give you a little story. So, Lana and I, we got introduced to Brian Buffini when we were at Remax back in you could say the Old Testament. And, he always recommended, how about you just do a pie party? And so what was great was that at the time I was going back and forth to Europe. We had some like operations and stuff. And I was always nervous because I left my wife and she was pregnant. And I was like, man, I don't like you by yourself. I know you just started this real estate, career. And she's like, oh, I'm good. I got to go and give out all these pies. So Lana literally created a Facebook event, invited anyone. She just, hey, you want a pie? I'm a new realtor. This is my jamboree. And so she got like a list of clients and I'm freaking out. I'm like, what? You just bought like $1,000 worth of pies, how are you? And I was a logistics officer. So I was like, okay, well, you need to make sure you store them correctly. You ship them correctly. You need to label them. Who are you going to meet? Getting all too dense.
Right.
And she's like, no, I'm just going to go drop them off, So she drops them off, hands the business card, and then you add them to the database. And at the time, the database was Facebook. Right? You got the people, you can engage with them. So very fundamental, very simple. And within that, there was like 5 transactions. And within that pool, there was one client who's been with us since then and has referred over the years. So that was just one operation, right? So simple that helped grab, yes, you need leads. But over time, you need to nurture the relationships. And so, yes, Lana was all about the engagement and growing. And obviously, we would facilitate it as we grew the teams.
That's a great idea. I've shared the idea of the pie giveaway to clients, like people you already worked with, but I didn't even think of that idea. That's a great one. So I think we can just say goodbye and end the podcast right here because that's enough.
No.
Because anyone that would go out and implement that is sure to meet some clients, I would think.
Oh, without a doubt, because that pie will sit at the table, and they'll be like, who gave you this pie? And they're still eating it. It's like a week.
And it's that law of reciprocity thing where people feel like, oh, well, they gave us a pie and maybe we should give them a shot at being our realtor.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. Well, tell me more about your client experience that you've put together. You've done some structure around it, right? And kind of more defined it now going into 2023.
Yeah. We've just been real blessed over the years. So since 2015, we serviced over 1,400 clients.
Wow.
And
that's impressive.
Yeah. And over $500 million in volume. And so I feel like as you start approaching like thousands of clients, billions, right? You start getting into real numbers. I feel we have to formalize what we've been good at, like that competency, that competitive advantage. And it to sum it up, it is client experience, but you have to be very intentional about that experience. And I mean, it's been almost like an it's been challenging because I've had to leverage, my wife, who's also my boss, my experiences, her intentions, right? Her vision, and putting that all together from what we've learned to really formalize it. Because, what is client experience? And to make our engagement here on the podcast useful, to the audience, we break it down into three, you could say three focuses or three components, things you should really focus on, because you can deep dive into each of these. And these are, again, over, 1,400 clients, over $500 million. These are literally what we're summing it up to. And in 2023, it is our goal to see this come through, kind of like our dissertation, like our thesis.
Yeah.
And I would argue that it would benefit pretty much any industry. Does that sound fair?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of this stuff that we do as top producers it can translate to any business. So I agree.
Oh, yeah. So let's get into it, right?
Yeah.
So
let's hear about it.
one, so you got client experience. The first one is trustworthy service. So we talked about like coining stuff, right? Before, and trustworthy service is like in itself has meaning. One is there's trust, and two, there's service. And so like, let's go a little bit deeper. So we feel that when you're building trust, there's three things that you have to do. First one is that, are you actively listening? Okay.
What did you say?
Yes.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I love it. I was like, oh, did you not listen? No, that was hilarious. I love it. So are you actively listening? And that's really understanding more the purpose, the interest, but also the objections, right? It's getting deeper, because yes, you don't want to be an order taker. And a lot of that happened in the past 2, maybe 3 years ago, right? We were order takers. I mean, what do you want to buy? 3 beds, 2 bath. Okay, you have until the weekend. You need an offer over list price. You just a waiter, Yeah. And we kind of left that where you have to actively listen. You have to really take notes, like honestly take notes, understand where they are in their life, kind of guide them. I mean, all the greats are saying, Gary Keller's like, you're going to have to be a wealth manager with these clients, right? So it's really actively listening, getting into their purpose, right? Second, you need to be good at your job. And being good at your job, I'm not saying to be perfect. Like, I am far from perfect. We are far from perfect, but you can be consistent. And consistent is showing up every day, being on time, engaging your clients, doing the necessary due diligence, right? And doing it consistently. So it's really funny because there's a difference between consistency and intensity. Like everyone, agents may be more intense, and showing off or whatever the case is, but then they don't do it for 48 hours later, 72 hours later, and then they come back to being intense. Does that make sense? So you need to be very consistent. Yeah. And we can get into those methodologies of consistency. And then finally, you have to care. Like we're in a business of what? Service. And so that's what it goes back to, trustworthy service. Yes. And so if you really care, you're going to be there because you actively listened and you were part of their lives. Because real estate, for me, is a consequence of byproduct of life, right? You get married, you get a divorce, you get a job, lose a job, you get more money. Do you see where I'm going? It prompts a transaction all the time, right? So if you generally are actively listening, you're good at your job and you care, you're providing impeccable service. I'm telling you, trustworthy service. So that's the first thing. And that really gets into the training. Okay. And that's remember, that's the first client experience. Remember, it's going back to client experience, breaking down to 3 things. So client experience first is trustworthy service. Okay. The second one is what we call being omnipresent being
Okay.
omnipresent. And so I always joke around with the team is being the Holy Spirit, like your sphere of influence,
Okay.
but the
Okay.
Holy Spirit. So the Holy Spirit, obviously, if you're a Christian or
Catchy.
whatever. Yeah, it is. I love playing with words, but because you're constantly present among your community. Now, this has to deal more from the database standpoint, using that client relations manager. And you could kind of focus it being omnipresence in three ways. And the first one is you have to understand your database. And I would like to say that, maybe there are agents that can say they are certified in their CRM, but I haven't met an agent yet that dominates their database.
So by understanding the database, do you mean the actual software or the people?
Yes, the actual database, the actual software. Because they always say, what's the best CRM? The one you use.
The one you use. Yeah.
Yeah. The CRM has all these, amenities, if you will, but it allows you to stay omnipresent. And so we've really been focusing, we have Chime, a database, and we're really trying to harness, they have an AI feature, artificial intelligence. They have, drip campaigns. They can do pay-per-click ads or just sending out emails at scale. And so we're really focusing on how do we touch our clients at least 7 times a month, at least. All the clients times 7 times 12. And yes, we can get into different formulas or different prescriptions of that, but they'll come with a call from Lana, a newsletter, a market update. Do you see where I'm going? And an invite to our client event. So if we really focus on our database, because again, we've sold over 1,400 clients. So actively in Colorado Springs, we have about 500 plus clients living. So we need to farm them. We need to cultivate them. So that's the first thing within being omnipresence is that database. So I mentioned,
I have a question around the database. So you said 7 touch points per month, right? I think there's probably people listening that are thinking, man, that's a lot of times to touch a past client in a month. I don't want to be annoying. I don't want to be, too forward with that. What would you have to say about that?
So it goes back to trustworthy service. Are you actively listening and do you care? There's these care connections or care calls, right? Remember, life is happening. Their birthday. You're telling me a client's going to be mad if you called them on their birthday? Right. That happens once a year, right?
Yep.
That's pretty significant. Their home anniversary. Do you see that? That's another, right? So yes, calling them frantically, like, I don't know, like you're selling Amway, not that there's nothing wrong with Amway, but without some sort of purpose and value, yes, that will be challenging. So it's really understanding, are you actively listening? Do you care? And so, or you're just bringing value. Hey, come to our client event, our pumpkin patch. What's wrong with inviting them, right? Reminding them, because that'll get into the third thing, not the end your answer.
No, that's a great answer. No, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So the third thing, the next thing within being omnipresent is your client events. Like one of the things that Lana has really, because she was a military spouse, she came to this country, right? She became a citizen. And when you move, it's tough. You're by yourself. You're lonely, right? You come to a new city. And in Colorado Springs, our environment is obviously heavy military, veterans, a lot of transitions is going on in Springs. And so we really understand that if you can foster a community through experience, through client events, the engagement is just so much higher. And plus you get to party your way to success. And not to just plug in our YouTube, because it's a small little YouTube, which is one of the topics I'll discuss in this podcast. But is you can witness our communities through our client events because people love enjoying time with one another over food, music, interaction. And it's even more important because, we spent a year plus confined to our properties, right, because of COVID. And so, but it's been really great because we've seen clients interact with our agents, ourselves, each other. They've gotten married, they've dated, they've done business with each other, right? They create this little group, this little tribe. And it's cool because the client events, you really start running an event organization where you're planning experiences. Like I said, inviting to a pumpkin patch, which is some reason the most popular event, and we'll have over 1,000 attendees because they're bringing their whole families. Bob bought with us, but Bob's going to bring his mom, his sister, all that stuff, right? Because it's the holidays. And we get to film it. And within that, we get to do touch points before, during, and after. You get to create content with that. So being omnipresent, right? So we have these events. If my wife was the CFO, she would probably have an event every month, back to back, right? So you do have to balance that. But you get to have really great events through different parts of the timeline, right, over the year. In the summers, you probably want to do a summer bash, maybe a movie theater. In the Christmas kind of fall, winter season, you want to do pies with Santa. I mean, there's a whole keynote Lana talks about just in client experiences, particularly events. So the last thing within being omnipresent is you're going to need an employee. You're going to need an extension and probably eventually a department where it's client concierge. So we've gone through a lot of different people to be our client concierge. And this year it's going to be better than it's ever been. But our client concierge, think of like 5-star hotels, memberships. It's about literally servicing the client because we think that when you come to Lana Rodriguez Group, that you're part of this club, this membership, this tribe, right? This exclusivity. Yeah. And if you have a client concierge that literally calls on behalf of Lana, it's actually more effective than just a cold call. Like, hey, I am calling on behalf of Lana Rodriguez Group. Lana just wanted to say hi, blah, blah, blah. It allows the client to feel part of, I think, something bigger. It helps with coordinating different events with the clients, especially updating, because let's be honest, if you're a lead agent, you're a team leader, you cannot be everywhere, but you need to be omnipresent throughout the life of the client. So again, omnipresence is database, client events, and client concierge. But you're most likely going to have someone do that. So that's the second part in the client experience, right? So, trustworthy service.
I do have a couple questions. So how often?
Of course.
How often do you guys hold events? Quarterly, every other month?
So I don't want to steal my wife's thunder, but last year I think we did less than 10, and they range in terms of magnitude. That makes sense. So the first one that really kicks off the year is Easter brunch. Like, think about it, right? The holidays are over, resolutions are trying to be made, right? And then it's kind of a plateau in terms of activities in the world, right? The Super Bowl's over. What next? Maybe Valentine's, right? But that's more like romance, very intimate. Yeah. Don't really need to bring. I mean, we've hosted one event called the Red Party, and it's not Game of Thrones like the Red Wedding, but it's an opportunity where we had our closest people come together. But the big major event is Easter brunch, because it's like Christmas, but in reverse or something. It's like the first big event of the year. If you think about it, the sun's out, the Easter bunnies are out, the eggs are out, kids put on their Sunday best dress. They always have great meals. They want to take pictures, right? And we get to be part of that. in that, remember, omnipresence, and we
Yeah.
get to have a memory with them. So that's like the first event. Then we go into other events, right? We'll go into, like I said, we'll host a movie, but we actually bring the theme. So it's like cosplay. You remember where, you know, all the action figures come together. What is it called? I forgot what it's called. Where,
yeah, I don't know that.
Yeah. Where you come together. And so like last year we did Jurassic Park, and we all dressed up as if we were working at the park, and we had an event. We rented out 3 movie theaters, and we really got to have that event.
Cool.
We do pies and smiles with Santa. So there's a lot of events where we take formal photos with Santa. They don't have to wait in the mall or go somewhere. We get to interact with them. I mean, the list goes on, but there is a series of them. And honestly, we change it up a little bit so that we can service the time and space of where we're at, because maybe the market prefers something better versus doing the same thing, you know?
Okay, nice. Yeah, thanks for all those great ideas.
Oh yeah, I could talk all day. And then the third thing in the client experience is called, you got to have witnesses. You got to have raving fans. Because again, it's part of the client experience, right? So you have trustworthy service, you're omnipresent, but you're developing raving fans. And thankfully, we're in a world of what? Social media. We're in a world, if it's not online, it never existed. People are living out their lives online. So you have to embrace it. So if you have a professional, especially in any type of service industry, is saying like, oh, I don't get my business through online, or you're leaving money on the table, and everyone is doing it. And people think that they can't do it. I think I heard a stat or something where it was like, how many people live in the world? I think it's like 8 billion people or something like that. I don't know. And like, there's like 2-point-something billion subscribers on YouTube or something.
Yeah.
And that's just the audience, right? That doesn't mean like, it's like, you know, think about it. So there is an opportunity. But you need to find witnesses that they're witnessing you be a leader. They're a fan of you being a leader in the community, fan of you being a father, a mother, an activist, you know, just being who you are, showing more of your story, right? Because we know that stories sell, facts tell. And so you need to harness those platforms. And yes, every platform has a different, you could say, theme. But you need to do that because people need to see you and they're like, man, he did this, she did that. I like it. You know, they start following you, not just real estate, but just overall. And so, you know, that really, you know, we could go down the rabbit hole of different types of methodologies within that, but we're focusing on all the social media platforms. Meaning LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Obviously, TikTok has some political challenges there, but we know that with Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, you could reach a lot of different people and you can showcase a lot of stuff. And that's really a really living and breathing database as well. Think of it, that's a database in itself that's actually very engaging. So then you get to witness. Now we're definitely going to go heavy on YouTube, not just showing our listings and showing our client events, but really now adding value and educating them. So YouTube, we're going to go very deep in Colorado Springs because I call it America's backyard, and really educating them on real estate, but how it applies to Colorado Springs. Does that make sense? Because real estate's really hyper local. Like what happens in Springs is not happening in Denver. And what's happening in Springs is not happening in Pueblo. So really understanding that, right? And that's part of the education. Why? It's also part of the professionalism. So remember, creating raving fans, witnessing. And then reels have been, I think that personally, I'm going to go really hard in the paint. Like I'm Shaquille O'Neal right there. I'm going hard on reels because reels, I always think of them as Costco free samples. You know how you go to Costco, you get a little sample, it's like 30-second engagement, right? You're like, oh, that was cool. Nah, that sucked. Next, right? That's kind of like what I think is reels are. And as you grow,
there might be people listening that are like, what in the heck is a reel? So expand on that a little bit.
Well, like a lot of the platforms are having their version, like YouTube have shorts, but it's a small amount of time. So it ranges maybe, depending on the platform, I think like 30 to 90 seconds. And think of it as a sound bite, just an extended sound bite. And you got to do a lot of things in a short amount of time to compel your audience. And there's some reels that you put out and people are like, I love it. And there's some that are like, next, right? It's no different than you going to Costco, right? But we plan on doing the real estate universe because we've really learned a lot, not just from residential sales, but from investing, from commercial real estate, from working with your spouse, being a team leader, being a solo agent with 60, 80 pies, you know, and we want to be able to showcase that. But remember, our attention span's so small. So that's why reels are important, because you get a little sample, which will then lead you to maybe the YouTube, to the other social media platforms. Then eventually you're going to create a lot of raving fans, and you're going to have a lot of witnesses that like, oh yeah, I saw Lana just close this big deal, or I saw Lana just give back, or I just saw Lana be a mom, right? They get to relate too, you know, so you entertain and educate. So if you think of all those three we just talked about, right? Trustworthy service, being omnipresent, and creating witnesses, raving fans, if you will, you're really going to create, I think, the best client experience ever, because when you meet them, you're giving incredible service, right? Then you get them, then they become a client, they become into your database, and you're constantly feeding them value and following up on them, both virtually and in person, right? Through the client events, through the database. And then you're living in the world that everyone views everyone on, which is social media. Because you sold with them, now you're following up with them on the database, and they're witnessing you go through life. And so that's how, like, you know, we were talking about earlier, it's like, you don't know what you don't know. Like, we didn't know this year 2015, 2016, but then comes 17, 18, we start like, okay, this is working. Client events are working. Being good at your job is working, right? Social media returns leads, right? And so this trifecta is kind of like I said, our dissertation, where I have to prove it, especially in the market where it's shifted. I really think that, you know, us being linear, meaning X amount of calls will yield a Y amount of leads. The problem, I think, with that is that when the market shifts like it has, the people you need to sell to, the amount of calls you need to make, the ads you need to make, I think that pool literally shrinks, and it has shrunk. I mean, as a lender, you could tell me, you know, my VA applications, or just applications in general, have stopped. So that means
definitely,
the amount of people to sell to eventually will be disrupted. And what's challenging with that too, at the same time, if that's where you're going, like more linear, is that you're competing with two forces. You're competing with operational cost, right, to run a business. Inflation, the cost of goods goes up. And then the second force is the cost to acquire a lead, right? To get a lead, period. Whether through impressions, engagements, just getting cold leads, whether it's Zillow, cold calls, ISAs, artificial intelligence, all that rises. So you got the cost of acquiring, then you have the operational expenses going up, and you're being linear when the pool of the people you need to sell to is getting smaller. And this was huge because I follow Alex Hormozy. He's like an up and coming influencer, and he described that what I just said obviously 10 times more eloquent than I did. In like the last like 2 minutes of a podcast he did. And it literally got me to to what I just explained, because you need to be quadratic. So think of in algebra, like a squared plus b squared plus c squared, right? That's a quadratic equation where it's essentially squared, but it's also exponential. And exponential is what referrals is, right? One referral will bring you two, right? Will bring you a resource that amplifies your business, will bring you an idea that changes your business, right? Because that's what client experience is creating a quadratic equation to have an exponential results. And so that crazy quadratic equation that I just said, trustworthy service, being omnipresent, and having witnesses or raving fans, that's the quadratic equation that has been worked well for us. And we need to really harness that so that when we make an X amount of so much profit just from that, because remember, every time you're bringing a referral in because of your client experience, it's reducing your cost to acquire. Think about it. Like if it costs me X dollars to get one client, right, through whatever means I'm doing, but he generates me two more. So I just got the price of one client. I got three leads. Do you see what I'm saying? So really focusing again on client experience. And that's after you really dominate that, then you could beat everyone else. In the linear game, meaning getting the best Zillow account, getting the best ISA, inside sales agent, getting the best pay-per-click ads, getting the best Google, keywords. Do you see where I'm going?
Absolutely.
Because again, the buyer pool is tighter, and they're actually scared. So who are they gonna fall back on?
The person
they fall back on people
the person they trust.
Yeah. Person they trust. See?
Goes back to the first one.
So it goes back to the first one, right?
Yeah.
And everyone has a database. Everyone has a database. Like of the years of service you've done in lending, you have serviced how many clients, right? And all that database, like if you just apply that, this is nothing like Harvard or anything. This is like I said, this comes back from our humble beginnings and almost a decade of servitude, right? From 2015 to now, servicing over 1,400 clients, $500 million in volume. We've really learned a lot of hard things. But that's pretty much defining client experience.
Yeah. Well, I love how it's intentional, because I think that's so key to have a defined process on how you do it instead of just being haphazard and randomly calling people or whatever it is. And I think too, I mean, tell me if you agree, but I think that if someone's listening to this and they're just starting off and they have 5 past clients, but they have a sphere of people they know, neighborhood, friends, family, they could still hold an event. It might not be as gigantic as something you guys are doing, but you could have a happy hour or something a little more, less expensive or less complicated to plan and still have a big effect.
You're spot on. There's quality versus quantity. You do not need, how many people, man, I grew up in Georgia, tailgating, you can get a truck, some music and some beer. Next thing you know, it's a party, and so it's really focusing on quality engagement. And I remember when Lana and I first had our client event, 2015 passes, and we service over 30 clients. And for all you Colorado Springs listeners, we rented out the Loft Collective on Old Colorado City. I'm gonna plug them in. Great little venue. They have 2, and they had this little one. I think it was on 19th Street or something in Old Colorado City. We rented it out, small little place. We rented a bartender. We rented a DJ who was a student at Colorado College. We went to Costco and got platters.
Okay.
And then all we did was decorate it with some Dollar Tree items, put some of my wife's logo at the time, and turned up the music, and people come in, and next thing you know, they're having a blast.
Uh-huh.
And that was like, people would call it balling on a budget. I think that was like maybe less than $5,000. No, I would say even less, maybe 1,000, maybe less than 3,000. Honestly, I'm probably inflating the numbers, but it was very cost effective. You don't need to do an Easter brunch where you're paying $30,000 with champagne, orchestra, pictures. You don't need to do that. You can eventually get there, right? You can increase that experience, but look, it's about the quality engagement and doing something different. Like you could do something totally different because maybe the clientele that you serviced is a certain tribe and they like different artifacts. They like different experiences. Like maybe your tribe is like a book club and they love reading.
Or so different people within your tribe might like different things. So having a variety of different things you do.
Yeah. A variety of different things. Yeah. So like if you're in a book club, get an author. I don't know. Yeah. I wonder how much an author costs. Because it's not like authors are influencers, but I know the person who wrote Harry Potter, you could maybe get him on a Zoom.
I did an event once where I had a comedian come in and it was awesome. Yes. And it wasn't that expensive.
Yes. That's a good one. That's like a good adult one too. Like, this
was family
Laugh
friendly,
with Lana.
Oh, yeah, Laugh with Lana. I love
it. Laugh with Lana. I love it. I'm about to take that.
Take it and run with it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No, this is thanks for letting me share that kind of dissertation on client experience.
Yeah. And I don't want to run too long, but people might be thinking, man, just even 3,000, that's a lot of money for an event. So I'd be thinking, how do you make sure people are there? How do you get people there? How do you invite people?
So again, I don't want to take thunder from Lana. So like, follow, comment, subscribe, Lana Rodriguez. But she has it's almost like 5 steps that you get to do per event in engaging with your clients. One, you should have a Facebook group where every time
to the events, you mean?
No, specific to your clients, because when your clients obviously they close, right? They come into your community, you put them in a Facebook group. So we call it We Love Our Clients, and there you can market to them. Okay. 2, your agents who service those clients can call them. Hey, just calling you. Pumpkin Patch is in 2 weeks. We can't wait. Are you bringing your sister? She was so amazing at the showing that we did when we first bought your house. Okay, boom, touch point, done, right? So that's already 2. They get a mailer, a beautiful little flyer that's tangible, and they put it on their fridge. That's constantly looking at them. Oh, babe, make sure we got to go to Lana's party. Gotta go to Lana's party, make sure it's on the calendar. They start deconflicting their schedules. When you're there, right? They will remember that Lana took a picture with them, Lana talked with them, their kids were playing, they had a moment, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So there's multiple steps you can do. Like I said, the database, that also sends a reminder. Newsletters is telling them, hey, pencil this in, because, so yes, getting the roster there. And we do, when we first started, we never took attendance, if you will, but now we do. And we can start seeing who's showing up. And that's pretty insightful as well, because you kind of get into props, stats, demographics. You're like, in this event, just more ladies attended, and this event more men. You get to kind of see what's working and what's not. There's people that don't show up, and we're like, man, we're never doing this again. And so, and then you gave me another question, another thought that maybe an audience member would have is like, well, man, I don't want to spend $3,000. Now, remember, there is a cost of doing business. And you have to consider that as marketing expense. Now, you do have vendors, you do have other industry partners that can help with that, right? Along the process. And they can sponsor events. They can sponsor these little events here. And then you work that out with them. obviously everything in compliance, but it's an opportunity to bring those other vendors to your community because they're part of that client experience as well. Your inspectors, lenders like yourself, title, insurance, contractors that have helped you, just the overall universe, and of also third parties like lawyers, right? Remember, real estate follows life events. So there's doctors, lawyers,
all kinds of people,
CPAs, right? They're all part of the formula. So they can help sponsor these events, and they would love to, especially like CPAs, all that, right? Because they just bought their home. So what does that mean? They can start doing more tax planning. They can start leveraging their real estate, so forth.
Well, and then those vendors could invite their database to the event.
Oh, yeah. That just goes crazy, right? Especially if you start grabbing their spheres, right? And joining spheres together. And that's what I love about being a team leader, is because I get to see my agents literally bring their spheres into our original sphere, right? You got an agent joins a team, they're bringing you a database. But now you get an opportunity to enhance their client experience that they may or may had before they came to you, and so it's an opportunity to service now a new group and redefine that. And so that's been really cool as a team leader, because it's hard to grow your own business by yourself. And again, you don't know what you don't know. And when I bring in a new team member, I'm really excited to help them grow their sphere.
Yeah. What does your team look like? How many agents do you have on your team?
So we have about less than 10 agents. I think we have 7. But we are very aggressive in growing we want to be around 25 agents. That's the number that we've kind of underwritten. That will be most effective to reach our goals. And then we have 4 staff, transaction coordinator, team manager, marketing coordinator, and then 5, I'm sorry. And then 2 executive assistants.
Okay. So if someone's listening to this and they might be interested in talking to you a little bit more, could they reach out to you and inquire if they're intrigued by your assistance?
Yes, sir. It's Bryan or Lana Rodriguez and/or we offer to, right? And on any of the social media, I'm not on TikTok, Lana is, but pretty much all social media. So LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. If you want TikTok, Lana's on there. YouTube, and that's about it. And my number's there. I'm a realtor, so if you want to,
right. Hopefully it is anyway.
Yeah, hopefully it is.
Yeah.
And I'm always here, as you guys probably experienced. Man, this guy has a long breath. So.
Well, I love what you're doing, and I think at a minimum, whoever's listening needs to subscribe to your channels and follow what you're doing, and emulate it as much as they can. And thanks so much for being on. It's been awesome. I love your energy.
Now, first of all, I want to say thank you, because again, you're providing a platform where you're getting people to witness other perspectives in real estate. And as a lender, I've told you that you are no different than a Merlin, right? What do witches, wizards, and lenders have in common? They create magic. And so I always tell borrowers and real estate agents, you guys need to find a lender that's going to help you grow your empire. Whether you're a borrower or a real estate professional, that lender is going to work the magic to fit those clients into the right product at the right time too. So again, it's great to see lenders, helping out in the real estate community, not just from financing, purchasing power, but from education. Because that's why we do continue in education, and the environment's always changing. So again, thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's exactly what I do in my lending business. I believe in giving back to my partners in the business, real estate agents and other people. So if anyone listening would like to talk to me more about that, I encourage you to reach out. I'm happy to have a conversation. And Also, again, if you found value in this podcast, please share it with your friends. They can also learn from this. That's how the word gets out about this. And thanks again, Bryan, for being on. It's been awesome.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
All right. You guys all have a great day.
See you, sir.